And if I eat out, then I'll always try and get a starter and a main. But when it comes to dessert, I'm not fussed. I'm not bothered. Like, of course, I like chocolate. I like ice cream, but it's not what I get excited about. I haven't got a sweet tooth. Steve, have
No.
you got a sweet tooth? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another British English conversation with me, Lewis, and my lovely co-host and guest, Steve. So, Steve, how are you doing?
Hi, Lewis. It's so good to see you again.
Likewise, we were just catching up off camera, having a little natter, having a little chin wag, which are nice British ways to say having a chat. But today, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to get straight to the point. We're not going to waffle on because we've got an amazing topic that I love chatting about all the time with friends, family, students, and it is food. In particular, English and British food. So I'm curious, Steve. Are you a foodie? Do you live to eat, or do you eat to live?
Ooh, that's a clever question. I bet that's taking you all day to think of that as the first question, hasn't it?
It genuinely hasn't. It just came to me. But
I'm impressed.
as I was saying it, I was like, all right, am I going to say it right or not? And I did.
Well done. Am I a foodie? I love food. Right. To get into it, to explain properly, you have to understand, when I was growing up, I come from a very poor family. So food wasn't in plentiful supply. We used to go to bed hungry sometimes. Not to anyone's fault. My mum and dad worked really hard. They just didn't have good paying jobs. There was lots of people in the same boat as us, meaning there was lots of people the same as us. And when I started my first job, as a student, you don't have a lot of money. So, we lived on pot noodles and, the cheapest of everything. I certainly would just make a sandwich. That cheese sandwich would see me through the day. But when I got my first job, it came with a very nice expense account. And so suddenly, when I was sent from my office out to work, I could pretty much go to any restaurant and have what I wanted and never have to pay for it.
A new world opened up to you.
Absolutely. So until my 20s, I'd probably only ever been in maybe 3 or 4 restaurants in my life. So I had a sort of reverse snobbery. I looked at people in restaurants and thought, I don't even know what to do when I go in there. Talking the late 70s, early 1980s. And so I was a little bit nervous going into a restaurant in case I said the wrong thing, didn't order the right thing, didn't know what half the things on the menu were. The most exciting food we had was fish and chips, and that was a treat, maybe once every month or 2 months. So suddenly, I remember the very first time I was sent out to work, and it was to an area called the Cotswolds, which is a very well-to-do area. And I knew my hotel was paid for. It was a lovely village. It was a lovely hotel. But the only restaurant which was attached to the hotel was the only one in the village. And it was run by someone called Egon Rone. And it had a Michelin star, which is
very fancy.
Yeah, a fancy, expensive restaurant. That's how they're measured. There's not many restaurants got these. So I was straight on the phone to my boss saying, where am I supposed to eat tonight? Once I've done the job, where do I go and eat? Because this is the only restaurant. Otherwise, I'll have to get in the car and I'll drive like 5 or 6 miles. And I don't really want to do that. He said, you're new to this expense account. Order what you want.
Treat
so
yourself.
I went in, and it was a lovely Spanish lady who was the waitress. I remember that. And I was just learning Spanish, so I was practicing with her. And she said, what do you want? I said, bring me the most expensive of everything. And as it happened, it was ostrich, the main course. So
Okay, that sounds a
my
bit
first
weird.
expensive out meal was in a Michelin-starred restaurant, and it was eating ostrich.
As you
Over
do.
the course of the next 30 years, I became a foodie because I could, and for me, it was free. So, yeah, in answer to your question, yeah, I am a little bit of a
Okay.
foodie. I'll have a go at anything. I'm quite adventurous. But you, are you adventurous with food?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not a picky eater. I'm not a fussy eater at all. In fact, a funny story is that my first word ever, apart from like mummy or daddy, the next word was more. So I've always been a little bit greedy and I've always been a little bit chubby, or at least when I was growing up, I just wanted more and more and more. I was never satisfied. So for my parents, it was like a dream because I see now my sister with my nephew and he's very picky. He's very fussy. He only eats certain things, which is a bit frustrating for them. But when I was a little baby and a child, I was always like, yeah, give me
Give
everything.
me, give
Give me
me.
all of the food. So I like trying different tastes, and my family have always been open to different cuisines, spicy food, Asian food, a little bit of everything, all sorts. So I'm kind of grateful for that experience because I've always loved eating out. I've always loved cooking as well. And even before I went to uni, one of my guilty pleasures was watching like food programs, whether it's like food travel documentaries or like Master Chef, and then other things like Come Dine With Me, which is a British classic where basically you have dinner parties and people will cook a three-course meal for four other guests, and then they will rotate. So on Monday, for example, I'm cooking, I will prepare the menu, and I'll have four guests. Then the next day, you go to one of your guests' house, and they will cook another three-course meal. So I've always been interested in the world of food, and I've always loved eating. And if I'm having a tough day or a long day, I will look forward to my meals, and this will get me through the day. So to sum up, yes, I've always been curious, never been fussy, and I've always been a foodie, and I live to eat rather than eat to live.
Great expression. Can I pick you up on, you went through, I've seen all of those programs. I like watching
Uh-huh.
them as well. Um, but the one I recommend to my students, and I recommend it all the time. If you have a one-to-one lesson with me, you're going to get recommended to watch this.
Okay.
And it's the Great British Bake Off.
Uh-huh.
I think that is such a good example of different regional accents coming together in a nice friendly way. They don't just talk about cooking and baking. They're helping each other. They're having genuine conversations. I think it's probably, for me, one of the best TV shows to learn English I've ever seen.
You see, on that note, I've never had that much of a sweet tooth. So I've always loved savory food, and I get really excited about having a nice savory meal. And if I eat out, then I'll always try and get a starter and a main. But when it comes to dessert, I'm not fussed. I'm not bothered. Like, of course, I like chocolate, I like ice cream, but it's not what I get excited about. I haven't got a sweet tooth. Steve, have
No,
you got a sweet tooth?
I haven't really. But answer me this. So you just use the word dessert, and there's three. Well, there's four terms we use really for that, isn't there? There's dessert, there's afters, there's
Huh.
sweet, and there's pudding. So what,
Pudding's a
you
common one.
use dessert all the time? Do you never use any of the others?
I wouldn't use afters personally. I'd use sweet,
No.
yes, and I'd use pudding quite a lot. Pudding's quite a common thing. It's like, oh yeah, do you want any pudding? Like, what puddings have you got? But to be honest, maybe it's the fact that I've been living outside of the UK for so long that I tend to be a little bit more neutral in the terminology that I use. So then I don't use as much slang as maybe I do when I'm back home with my friends and family. And then their use of certain words will rub off on me and I will start to pick it up a little bit again. But I'd say
Yes.
my go-to now is probably dessert. And then if not, it'd be pudding. And just on that note, some of my students will struggle between the pronunciation of a very, very dry place, like the Sahara, the Atacama, the Gobi Desert. Stress at the beginning, desert. And then if you're having a pudding, you're ordering a pudding, you're ordering a dessert. Dessert.
Very
And to say,
good. I've got a food story connected with a desert. Short,
okay,
not dessert.
go on, tell
Desert.
us.
Um, I was once lost in the Arizona desert, and I'd been told I was right on the border with Mexico, and it was a very dangerous area. This particular area I was in, and I was told no matter what happens, don't run out of fuel. Make sure your phone's fully charged. Don't run out of water. Always make sure you know where you're going. And I got lost. And the sun goes down in the desert. Like 1 minute it's day, the next minute it's night.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get a signal on my phone while I'm driving this big 4-wheel drive. None. I thought I've just drunk the last of my water and the little red warning light for fuel had come on. And I thought, I'm going to end up sleeping in my car. And this is not the safest area in the world. This is not like just down the road from your house. And I was driving, and when you're nervous and you start hunching over the wheel, this is
Uh-huh.
hunching, and you're tight and you feel the sweat starts coming. You think, oh, this is going to be really bad.
Uh-huh.
And suddenly I saw a light in the distance. And as I got closer, the car's starting to go, ga-dung, ga-dung. My fault, totally stupid. But the car's just on fumes now. It's just coasting. And it was a Holiday Inn hotel. And I just came to a stop and the car cut out. And I went in and the lady was like, hi, we're having a wedding at the moment. So I said, have you got a room and have you got something to eat? And she said, oh, sure. Just go past the hotel. There's a restaurant next door. So I went, I got a room, had a shower, ran. I was hungry. I hadn't eaten all day. Went next door, had the best meal of my life. Someone says, what's the best meal you've ever had? It's that one.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if it was the food, not sure if it was the service, not sure if it was the actual restaurant itself. It was the relief that I was alive.
Desperation as well. You were so desperate. It was the desperation. It's like, oh, I must eat. It was like an
Absolutely.
oasis that you saw in the desert.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember what it was that you ordered?
Surf and turf.
Okay. What is surf and turf?
So surf and turf, you don't see it much in England, to be fair. It's very American, I think. I could be wrong
Mhm.
there. Perhaps I just don't, because restaurants in England that have that. But it's where you have a combination of meat and something that comes from the sea. So meat, the turf part, turf's another word for grass. So animals eat grass and then they end up on
Mhm.
your plate. And surf is waves coming in. That's called the surf. And so things from the sea. So usually it's things like steak and maybe lobster on the same plate.
Perfect. Delicious. If you are an indecisive person, then you're like, do I want fish? Do I want meat? Surf and turf. That's what
Surf
you
and
go
turf.
for when you're panicking. Now, from here, we're going to speak about 10 different classic British dishes. But I'm curious to know if you think that British food, English food, gets a bad rap, and if it's actually true that English food is disgusting. Because you'll hear from people around the world that'll say, like, oh, yeah, London was amazing. I love the UK. But the food, ugh. I just went to Italian restaurants. I went to Chinese restaurants. I didn't go to any pubs or any British restaurants whilst I was there. So it does have this bad reputation. Steve, do you think it's worthy of having this bad reputation?
I think some places are still. I think it's got a lot better. People expect a higher standard now. And there is this standardization because there's so many franchises, shops that are owned by a chain rather than an
Hmm.
independent. So if you go to Starbucks in San Francisco, you go to Starbucks in Madrid, you go to Starbucks in Manchester, you can have pretty much the same experience, the same sort of service, the same drink. And we have chain restaurants now, McDonald's, Burger King, pretty much the same wherever you go in the world. So we've got a standardization now. Um, Britain is very famous for its public houses, commonly known as pubs. And not that long ago, you went to a pub and you drank alcohol. That's what you went to a pub for. Then they became more places where you socialized. So instead of just being adults, you might find children in the outside having lemonade while you're having beer, you know? Um,
Hmm.
but if you wanted food, it was a bag of crisps, it was some pork scratchings, or maybe a pie if you were lucky, warmed up in a microwave. But the society has changed in England, particularly now. And that culture of drinking, eh, people still drink, but they tend to drink at home or somewhere differently. So to make money, lots of pubs have closed because they didn't get the customers. They started serving food. Um, and that's where the money is for them. That's where the profit is. And when it first happened, they were really good. You know, they spent a lot of money. It became restaurants really by any other name.
Hmm.
But now lots of the chain pubs have reduced the quality down. And I think it's awful. And I said simply don't eat in very many pub eateries now, for want of a better
Hmm.
word. Um, so some of the food is the best in the world. But if you're asking me, is English food the best in the world? I'm going back through my mind, thinking the last places I've eaten out, and I eat out quite a lot now. And in this year, say this year, I've eaten in a Lebanese restaurant, a Peruvian restaurant, several Chinese restaurants, a Japanese restaurant, many times in an Italian restaurant just this year. Can't
Hmm.
think of one time I've eaten in an English restaurant in England.
Okay. So you're not such a big fan of pub grub. And by the way, grub is a very colloquial way of saying food. It's like, oh, I want some grub. And as
Yeah.
often we associate pub and grub together because, of course, they rhyme. So it's like, oh, I could really do with some pub grub. And to be honest, again, the fact that I don't live in England anymore, whenever I do go home and I stay for a couple of weeks, this is what I fancy. Well, there are two things I fancy. The first thing is going to like a nice pub, ideally an independent kind of gourmet pub where you're going to have some nice pies on the menu. You might have steak. You might have some other like pub classics as well. And I really enjoy this experience. And I think nowadays you can get very good food there. But if we're thinking about the most famous chain of pubs, which is Weatherspoons, where it's known for having very, very cheap prices, and you can get a wide range of different meals. You can get breakfast, and it's dirt cheap. It's dirt cheap, meaning it's so cheap that you start to question, like, okay, hmm, something's not quite right here. And in those kind of places, I admit that the food is awful. You can go for a pint, but you're not going to eat well. But the other thing that I look forward to eating whenever I come back home, especially because I'm from Bradford, I often say Leeds, but I'm technically from Bradford. And Bradford is often known as being the curry capital of the UK because we
Now you're
have
talking.
we have fantastic Indian and Pakistani restaurants, and you can really tell the difference between
Yep.
the average Indian restaurant around Bradford, Leeds, also Manchester and Birmingham as well. And here in Belgium or when I'm in Spain, you can always eat Indian food in Belgium or Spain, but it's never quite the same. So whenever I go home, I always know I need pub food, pub grub, and a really good curry, a really good Indian.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I was sent on a course for a whole summer once to Leicester, and Leicester are famous for their curries as well. And at the end, I became an expert in Indian curry. It was amazing. I absolutely love it. And the lady Kerry, who appears in some of my videos, she does the voiceovers for me. She's tiny little lady, very slim, but she likes the spiciest, hottest food you have ever seen. And I remember being out with her once in an Indian restaurant, and I have something like Rogan Josh, something very mild, you
Very
know?
standard.
Yeah, and she always orders the hottest one that's there. Usually it's got warnings on the menu. And I saw the guy on the next table earwigging, listening in to what she was ordering because he just sat down. Yeah. And so Hez comes, he orders the same, and he's on this table over here. And so we're just chatting away. And I've tasted one of these things she eats, and it absolutely, I can't do it, you know, it'd kill me. So and we're just chatting away. And suddenly there's a commotion on the other table. And this guy's wife is like undoing his top collar. He's gone the color of purple. I don't mean red. I mean purple. And sweat is running down him. The waiters there, they're bringing him glasses of milk to try and cool him down. And Kerry's just like finishing that. Was that all right? Well, it could have been a bit spicier, you know.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. Do you like spicy?
I mean, I like spicy, but it doesn't look like I like spicy. What I mean by that is that I won't go for the hottest. Like, I'm not that mental. I'm not that crazy. But I'll usually go for like one above what you'd get. So a Rogan Josh, a Boona, a Doppiaza, they're all kind of like, they're spicy, but not that spicy. You can
Yeah.
tell a little bit of heat. So I'll
Bit of
usually go
kick.
for the one above. It's got a kick, and I like it to be spicy, but I'm not
Yeah.
crazy enough to go for like a Vindaloo or even a Fal, which I think is
Oh,
the spiciest one, because
she's
then
crazy. Yeah.
you lose a bit of the flavor as well.
I
And
think so.
it
I
needs
think
to
so.
be spicy.
Do you not think it's some of it's showing off? Sometimes you go to a curry house, as we would call them, a curry house, and there's a group of lads in their early 20s, and they're all trying to outdo each other for having the hottest thing. You know, bring me hot. No, the fall isn't hot enough. Add something else to it, you know?
Uh,
Oh, I like them hot. And you think, really? Do you know, just immaturity, isn't it, really?
I know what you mean. It is sometimes a bit of a competition. And if you see that one person gets a Vindaloo and you're like, I can do it as well, I promise. And then
Yeah,
minutes later, you'll see that you've got sweat dripping down your face. You'll be bright red. And this is what usually happens to me, even though deep inside, I'm really enjoying it. I promise I'm enjoying it, but I'll still be sweaty and I'll still go red. And I think it's just, I don't know, my biology, like it responds that way to curry. But I've always had curry since I was a young kid. So I'm used to it and I do enjoy it. But maybe it's a little bit of like kind of punishing myself. It's like that pain that you get when you're doing exercise, where it's pain, you're not comfortable, but you know you're going to feel better after. And with
it
spicy food,
hurts so
it
good.
kind of feels the same way. But
And
now,
then you regret it the
delicious.
next day. And
For
when you
sure,
go
for
into the
sure.
bathroom, man, that pain doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, not nice. So, on that note, let's talk about some British classics. And you'll be able to see it on the screen in case you want to check it out. If you're just listening to this podcast, then fair enough. We can kind of make you imagine that you can see the plate in front of you. So, the first one is a roast dinner, a Sunday roast, which is pretty much the same as a Christmas dinner. Christmas dinner, you might add a couple of extras. You might have, I don't know, pigs in blankets, for example, which are little sausages wrapped in bacon, which you wouldn't usually have the rest of the year. But a Sunday roast or a roast dinner is essentially having roast meat, which could be beef, chicken, or gammon. And gammon is like ham, essentially, with some roast potatoes, maybe some broccoli, maybe some peas, some mashed potato. Essentially, you have a range of vegetable and you have a roast meat, which is drowned in gravy, which is like meat sauce, meat juices. And it's common to also have Yorkshire puddings as well, which is like pancake
Mm,
mix and it's
mm.
savory. And you
I
make kind
love
of like
Yorkshire puddings.
a bowl almost, and you'll fill your Yorkshire puddings with gravy, and it's delicious, in my opinion. Steve, what do you think about a roast dinner? You a big fan?
I'm a huge fan of roast dinners. However, I try to watch my weight. So I would guess I have maybe one a month.
Okay.
Roast lamb is my favorite to have with it.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, Yorkshire puddings, no, not for me.
How come? Why don't you like Yorkshire puddings?
Um, I don't think they've got a place on a on a roast dinner. I just don't think they have anything to. It's basically batter, isn't it? It's just a
Yeah.
lump of batter. It's everyone's different. Everyone likes different things, and that's absolutely. I'm I'm very popular when I go out to a carvery. So
Hmm.
sometimes you go to a carvery restaurant or a carvery pub, and they will be serving roast dinner. I'm going next Sunday to one. And you go up, you pay your price, and you can help yourself pretty much to it all. And you're usually limited to one Yorkshire pudding. And I'm very popular because I always have to take it so that someone else can have mine. I don't want it. Oh, we'll get it anyway and I'll have yours, But no, to everyone out there who's listening, please don't try Yorkshire puddings. They're disgusting.
I beg to differ, for the record. I beg
You're
to
wrong.
differ, which is a nice way of saying I disagree. But that's our first meal. Let's move on to the next one. And Steve, do you want to describe what you see and tell us about it? What is this?
Yeah, absolutely. I can describe it. It's beans on toast and it's got grated cheese on the toast. I can honestly say I've never eaten it.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You've never had beans on toast?
Oh, yes, I've had that all the time. It's a handy snack. It's easy, even with my poor culinary skills. Culinary, a word meaning to do with cooking. With my poor culinary skills, I can make good beans on toast. I've never had beans on toast with grated cheese on it.
No? I mean, cheesy beanos is another way of saying it. For
I
me,
know
this
people who do it. I've never fancied it.
For me, this completes the dish. And of course, this is obviously not gourmet food. Um, it's very, very cheap and kind of nutritious food as well. And of course, you can get a loaf of bread and you can toast a couple of slices of bread. You can spread a little bit of butter on it if you want and then you just pour some beans on toast. It's simple. And usually people would have Heinz beans as well. It's the most famous brand. And personally, maybe I'm a bit modern here. What I do is, of course, I'll crack a lot of black pepper on top. And I also add some chili flakes because, again, I like spicy food. And I feel like chili flakes go really well with this. And for me, then when you grate some cheddar cheese on top and it starts to melt into the beans, that's when it becomes delicious. But I know it's not gourmet, it's not famous, but it's a solid thing that you can have midweek really quickly. And it's so cheap. It's peanuts.
It is. It's full of sugar, isn't it? Sorry, they are full of sugar. Baked beans, particularly Heinz ones. You can get reduced sugar, but that image that you show in there, that's got teaspoons and teaspoons full of sugar in it.
You're ruining it for me.
I'm sorry.
Here's me thinking it's really healthy and like, yeah, well, it's got a lot of sugar, artificial.
Yeah. And cheese isn't that good for you either. What's your favorite cheese?
I mean, I love all kinds of cheese, to be honest. Like a good cheddar is delicious, like in a cheese toasty, for example. But I can have parmesan on lots and lots of different things, not only pasta. Mozzarella's delicious. Manchego's delicious. Honestly, I try everything. I like blue cheese as well, which I know is a little bit divisive. Some people love it, other people hate it, but I quite like a bit of gorgonzola or, to be honest, anything. Are you into your cheese, Steve?
Um, I like feta. I like Greek
Hmm.
goat cheese. That's one of my favorites. I don't like cheddar. I thought it was called cheddar because it was from Cheddar Gorge, which is an area of England. But apparently, it's the action, it's a verb to cheddar cheese. It's some way that it's made that's different. I don't like the texture, not the taste. So I like crumbly cheeses rather than cheddar. So a Cheshire is is perfect for me. Um,
Okay. It's true that feta does make everything better.
do you know what? That's another good one for you. Have you just come up with that as well? That is very good. Well,
Nah, I mean, I've heard it a few times. I've used it before, but of course they rhyme. Feta makes everything better.
it does.
Now, next up, we have, of course, fish and chips, which you get from a chippy, which is a fish and chip shop. Of course, you can get fish and chips from pubs and from restaurants, but for me, it's not quite the same. My idea of having fish and chips is when you're sat outside on a bench or something like that, and the fish and chips comes wrapped in like old newspaper, and then you cover it with malt vinegar, lots of salt, maybe some tartar sauce or some curry sauce as well, or some gravy. Fish and chips for me is elite, but it's true that I never feel that good after fish and chips because it is just a bunch of fried food. So, ugh, that's the only downside for me. Steve, you're a big fan though, aren't you?
I am, but I wouldn't eat that fish and chips that you've just shown. It's terrible. It looks dry. The chips are cooked properly. There's too much batter. That's a terrible example of what's a fabulous dish. Tell you a story.
Go on.
I I teach a lot of people from Japan. For some reason, a lot of them are either doctors or in the government. And I was teaching this tax inspector, a lovely lady, and she was coming to London for the first time, but she was only coming for 2 days because her proper holiday, the reason she was coming was to go to Paris. So she was getting the train through to London. And she said, Steve, I'm only really going to be there for one full day, half a day traveling. So I'll only be there for one day. What should I do in London? I said, well, you've got to see Big Ben. You've got to see Buckingham Palace. I said, and you've got to have fish and chips. She'd never been to England. You've got to have fish and chips. Okay, I'll have fish and chips. And when I spoke to her a few weeks later, I said, how was your London trip? And she said, oh, it was great. Saw Big Ben, saw Buckingham Palace. She says, and I had fish and chips, but you didn't tell me how expensive it was. So I said, how was it expensive? And she said, it was £55
What?
for one portion of fish and chips.
What are you on
So,
about?
yes, exactly. So it turns out I just said, go and get fish and chips. And if I said to you, go and get some fish and chips, you're going to the local fish and chip shop, known as a chippy, and you're coming back with, as you say, a bag of fish and chips. She was in Knightsbridge and went to the local restaurant. So she sat down and had fish and chips in a restaurant, very posh. So I'm full of apologies. I should have said, she says it was, it was nice. I'm not surprised. However, when I was young, fish and chips was a reasonably cheap meal, particularly for a family like ours. Like I said, we didn't have much money, so it was a real treat. So my mum and dad would share one portion of fish and chips, and us kids would share the other portion, you know? Um, it was a reasonable a reasonable meal for us to buy, affordable.
Hmm.
I was in the Albert Dock filming for my next video just a couple of days ago, and I passed a fish and chip shop that's actually on the Albert Dock. This is a famous touristy area of Liverpool, so you'd expect to pay a little bit more. Fish and chips, £22.50.
For one person.
One person.
Oh, wow.
£22.50. I couldn't believe it. The average price now has gone up. Liverpool's more expensive than most other cities for fish and chips. I don't know why, because it's on the sea, but I don't know why it's more expensive. But the average is around 12 to £13. So this was almost double. Could not believe it. And it was full. They were queuing out the door to get these fish and chips. So maybe that lady's in London, my nice Japanese friend Lee, perhaps she didn't pay that much after all in a restaurant.
It's ridiculous. Inflation is real, but it's true that the cost of fish and chips has been rising quite a lot. And then that kind of takes away some of the appeal because the whole point is to have cheap fast food, which it's
Yeah.
tasty, it's cheap. You can, I remember I used to be able to get fish and chips for easily less than a tenner. And now it's very, very hard to find anywhere like that. And in particular, of course, the cost of the fish, which tends to be haddock or cod. And you end up having to pay like £8 or £9 for the piece of fish and then a few quid for the chips. Then if you want a drink or you want a sauce, it all adds up. So
Yeah.
it's a shame, but I guess it's the
How
reality.
much how much is a bag of chips in Leeds, for example? Do you know how much a bag of chips is? A portion. Proper word is a portion, but we frequently
Mhm.
call it a bag of chips.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I reckon it's a few quid, like £3, something like that.
I think it's about the same here. When I was little, I used to be sent to the chip shop sometime just to get a bag of chips, and it cost 1 penny. I would
Wow.
go in and say, "Can I have a one of chips?" And that was enough for easily two people. A one of chips.
The good old days.
Good old days. That's how old I am.
All right, let's keep going with some other ones. So here we have a lovely dish, which is again a kind of pub grub classic. And it's a classic that I used to have midweek. I'd get home from school and I'd ask my mum, like, oh, what's for tea? Note here in the north of England and in some areas in the south, we say that the first meal of the day is breakfast, the second one is dinner, and the third one is tea. So I'd finish school and I'd be asking my mum, like, oh, mum, what's for tea? Like, what's for dinner in neutral English? And just say, oh, bangers and mash. Is that all right? And bangers are the sausages, and mash, of course, is mashed potato. So if you're looking here, you can see some mashed potato, some peas, and some onion gravy with a few bangers. So a few sausages, which again, it's cheap, it's easy, it's hearty food, which, to be honest, looking at it now, it looks pretty good. Maybe the photo of fish and chips didn't quite do fish and chips justice. But here, I reckon that the image of bangers and mash looks pretty decent. Steve, what do you reckon?
I think that's making me hungry.
And is this right up your street?
That's right up my street. It just made me think. I've not really seen these pictures before. Something that I've never tried, and I always wanted to, is toad in the hole. Have you ever had that? Which is
Yeah, yeah.
again bangers or sausages.
Yeah, I've had toad in the hole, which is for you like a nightmare because
It's
toad
batter,
in the
isn't it?
hole is made with like what Yorkshire puddings are made from.
Yeah.
And it's a big tray where you'll put lots of the mixture in and you'll put lots of sausages there in between. And then you'll usually accompany it with the same stuff. So gravy, mash, maybe peas or broccoli or something similar, which is good. But in that scenario, I think it is too much batter, too much
Right.
Yorkshire pudding.
Yeah. I'll probably never try it because that, as you
No,
say, it looks like Yorkshire pudding to me. So, well,
no, it is.
interesting.
Now, we've not got too much time left, so let's quickly go through the remaining dishes. Um, Steve, a few words on this one that you can see. What is it and what do you think of it?
Okay. Well, this is a full English. Of course, if you go to Ireland, it's a full Irish. And if you go to
Uh-huh.
Scotland, it's a full Scottish. It's a breakfast. Um, it's, I happen to know because I watch your videos. I'm a big fan of your videos. And if
Thank you.
people are new here, you should watch Lewis's videos. They're really, really impressive, not only to learn your English, but he tells you some really interesting things. For example, he doesn't eat breakfast because he's a crazy man. And I couldn't believe it when he said that. So in England, this is what everyone else in the world thinks we eat for breakfast. I have maybe one a year, and then only if I'm in a hotel and it's come for free.
hmm
I wouldn't really thank you for that, Lewis. What about you?
I mean, to be honest, a full English, full Irish, full Scottish, which are all pretty much the same, they're really nice, but it's something that I think people from abroad think and assume that we have on a regular basis, which is very, very far from the truth. Because this is something you might have if maybe you're hungover and you're having like a late breakfast slash brunch and you just want something greasy to soak up all of the alcohol. Or if you are maybe a builder or you work in construction in some kind of way, you have a trade, because you're moving around and you're using your body with work, then it's more common to have a full English. So I would have it from time to time, and I do really enjoy it. But if you have a full English, you're not going to have lunch after. It's like a
No.
brunch, essentially.
Yeah. Those things, those round black things, the black puddings. Tell the nice viewers what they're made of, Lewis.
So it is made of blood. Um, it's blood sausage, essentially. So we call black
Oh.
pudding blood sausage, basically. So it's made of blood.
Yeah.
I don't know, a little bit of meat as well. I don't know exactly how they're made, but they're a bit like Marmite. So you either
Mm.
love it or you hate it. Personally, I do really enjoy it. I really like it. So some people will ask to get rid of the black pudding, but for me, it will stay. And if somebody else doesn't want their black pudding, kind of like you with Yorkshire puddings, I'll be like, oh, go on then. I'll have another piece of black pudding. More.
It's one of the big differences, I think. You said it's very similar between a full English, full Irish, full Scottish, full Welsh. In Scotland, they will have a tendency to put haggis there.
Mhm.
And haggis is the inside of a sheep's stomach that's stuffed full of entrails, the things that are inside the creature with spices. So I don't know which is worse, really. They both sound awful. They both taste fine. So, yeah, full English, not really for me.
Okay, fair enough. Now I'm going to go through the other savory dishes. So the next one we have is a classic pub pie. Maybe we're filled with steak or filled with chicken. It could be filled with different things. Another pub grub classic. But let's keep going. The other one is another kind of pie, which is shepherd's pie or cottage pie, which is made with mince. So mince meat and different vegetables, the meat sauce, and it's topped with mashed potato and sometimes cheese, and then popped in the oven, which I think in different countries you have a similar version of this dish. But again, it's another classic and another very hearty meal. And
Yeah,
continuing,
the difference between shepherd's pie and cottage pie, a shepherd looks after sheep. So a shepherd's pie has the meat from sheep in it, so it's usually lamb or maybe mutton if that creature's a little bit older when it's killed. So
Mhm,
shepherd's pie, lamb, cottage pie, usually beef.
exactly. Perfect. So now let's finish off with puddings, with desserts. So I'm going to stop sharing in a second, but first, here you can see sticky toffee pudding. And then here we've got an apple crumble. And the last one I've chosen is Victoria sponge. And these are just three examples of classic English puddings. Of course, sticky toffee pudding is made with toffee and dates. It's very, very sweet, served with cream or ice cream or custard. Apple crumble is made with apples and then this crumble, which is lots of like oats and stuff like that. Again, topped with cream or ice cream or custard. And a Victoria sponge is basically a sponge, which in the middle it's cut and you've got some kind of like cream, I think, and jam. And then on top, just like some sugar on top. I don't know if it's like frosted sugar, caster sugar. You can tell that my knowledge of puddings isn't quite as good as my knowledge of savory dishes. But Steve, do you have a favorite British dessert? A favorite British pudding?
My absolute favorite is something called a rum bar. I
Okay.
like the taste of rum. I don't drink much in the way of alcohol, but I like the taste of rum. And there's a drink called a rum bar. It doesn't actually have rum in it. It has the flavor of rum. So, but they're quite difficult to find now. So I like that. Um, Apple pie probably is the most common one. And when I was a teenager, I went to one of the Channel Islands called Jersey, which is in the English Channel. And there I had apple pie for the first time in my life as a teenager. And it was apple pie, it was warm, and it had ice cream on the side. And I thought this was a delight. It felt like an angel was dancing on my tongue. I've never tasted anything like it. And so I came back, and apple pie became a firm favorite. But I've yet to find an apple pie that tastes as good as that first one that I had in the Channel Islands when I was a teenager. What about you? What's your favorite?
I mean, this is reminding me of you when you were absolutely starving, almost lost in the desert, and then having this surf and turf. But in my case, as I said, I don't have much of a sweet tooth. But if I had to pick one, I think I would probably go for sticky toffee pudding because it's always good and it's like a crowd pleaser. I think
It's
everybody likes it.
always good. That's
Like
great. It's
it,
always
it
good.
it's always good. Like it's like pizzas. You order a bad pizza and it's still probably going to be good. So with sticky toffee pudding, the same kind of principle applies because it's always toffee. It's always sweet. It's always nice and like soft and it melts in the mouth. And yeah, I say if I had to pick one, I'd go for sticky toffee pudding.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I will join you in that. That on a winter's day, especially when it's a winter's day and it sticks to your ribs. When you've eaten it, it stays with you and keeps you warm. Oh, I'll have that.
You see, it's always good.
Always.
And on that note, we've literally got a minute before I've got a class. So thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching, for paying attention. Thank you, Steve, for joining once again. And if you have any suggestions for topics for us to discuss in the next few weeks, let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers. Thanks, Lewis. Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.